Good day to everyone and welcome to the presentation of group number 1. In this video, you will learn about OBE, or also known as outcome-based education. But before we start, let me quickly define to you the term education. So what is education? Education originated from the term educare or educare, which meant to draw out. That means education is the process of training and molding which leads to the development of the students. It is believed that education is a pouring-in process wherein teachers were the sole source of knowledge and the students were the passive recipient. So, in a particular teaching-learning process, an educator assesses learning needs, establishes specific learning objectives, develops teaching and learning strategies, implements plan of work, and evaluates the learning outcome. So what do we mean when we say learning outcomes? Learning outcomes are descriptions of the specific knowledge, skills, or expertise that the learner will get from a learning activity, such as training, session, seminar, course, or program. Learning outcomes are measurable achievements that the learner will be able to understand after the learning is complete, which helps learner understand the importance of the information and what they will gain from their engagement with the learning activity.
Good day everyone. In this video, I will tackle about the meaning of OBE and its principles. OBE stands for Outcomes-Based Education. According to Spady in the year 1994, OBE means clearly focusing and organizing an educational system around what is essential for all the students to be able to do successfully at the end of the learning experience. Also, OBE means starting with a clear picture around what is essential for the students to be able to do, then organizing the curriculum, instruction, and assessment to make sure that the learning ultimately happens. So the first principle of OBE is clarity of focus. This means that everything teachers do must be clearly focused on what they want for the students to know, understand, and be able to do. In other words, teachers should focus on helping students to develop the knowledge, skills, and personalities that will enable them to achieve the intended outcomes. Next principle is expanded opportunities. Teachers must strive to provide the expanded opportunities for all the students. This principle is based on the idea that not all students or learners can learn the same thing in the same way and at the same time. However, most students can achieve high standards if they are given appropriate opportunities. So, the third principle is high expectations. This means that teachers should establish in high, challenging standards of performance in order to be able to encourage the students to deeply engage on what they are learning. Helping students to achieve high standards is linked very closely with the idea that successful learning promotes more successful learning. And lastly, the last and final principle of OBE is designing down. It means that the curriculum design must start with a clear definition of the intended outcomes that students are to achieve by the end of the learning experiences. Once this has been done, all instructional decisions are then made to ensure or achieve the desired outcome. That's all.
Hello everyone, I'm Miss Elaiza, and for today, I'll be discussing about the characteristics of OBE. In the given video, there are 3 characteristics, and these are learner-centered, faculty-driven, and meaningful. But to fully understand the characteristics, I've made some research, and it turns out that OBE is assessment criteria that indicates how to determine whether a student achieved the outcome and what makes the difference between acceptable and unacceptable performance. So OBE is assessment tools that are more learner-centered than traditional forms of assessment. And when we say traditional form of assessment, they use multiple choices tests, true or false, essays, and short answers. So there are 2 types of assessment, formative and summative. When we say formative, it happens during the process of learning and teaching. So the purpose of this is to know the weakness and strengths of students and to provide feedback on their learning progress. And summative, it happens at the end of the course or module, and they provide exams for the students. So both of these are designed to improve the quality of students' learning experiences by focusing on significant knowledge and skills. So each module and assessment criteria are clear, so that the students will understand in advance what they have to do to achieve these outcomes, and assessors can use the criteria to assess the outcomes with reasonable objectives.
I'm Faeldog, and I will be discussing OBE procedure or procedure to implement OBE. But first, let me say how important OBE is, or the importance of OBE or outcome-based education. Teachers are responsible for learning, and motivation depends on the personality of the teacher. Learners take responsibility for their own learning and are motivated by feedback and affirmation of their work. The purpose of OBE is to increase the knowledge and skills of the learners. It is important that teachers have a good personality that matches the learner's personality. And it is important that learners are motivated in learning, enable for them to gain knowledge and engage their knowledge in a learning process, and for them not to be afraid nor pressured in learning. So, proceed to the main topic.
Procedure to implement OBE. First, identification of the educational objectives of the subject or course. So, what are educational objectives? The broad goals that the subject expects to achieve is defining in general terms the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that the teachers will help the students to attain. The objectives are stated from the point of view of the teacher, such as to develop, to provide, to enhance, and to inculcate, etc. Second, listing of learning outcomes specified for each subject or course objective. Since educational objectives are broadly stated, they do not provide detail guide to be reachable and measurable. Learning outcomes are the measurable objectives of the subject, which are stated in active verb: to demonstrate, to explain, differentiate, etc. A good source of learning outcome is the Bloom's Taxonomy by Benjamin Bloom. Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives are cognitive, which is knowledge, psychomotor skills, and affective attitude. Cognitive refers to mental skills such as remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, synthesizing, and creating. While psychomotor is mental or physical skills that has mental activities such as observing, imitating, practicing, adapting, and innovating. Last is affective, which is growth or feelings or emotions. Responding, organizing, and internalizing. Lastly is drafting outcomes assessment procedure. It enables the teacher to determine the degree of the attainment of the students of the desired learning outcomes, and the teacher will be guided in the selection of assessment tools to be usual.
Good day everyone. I am here to talk about OBE and what is the essential or purpose of changing the education system to outcome-based educations. So OBE is more concerned with how successful one is achieving what needs to be accomplished in terms of skills and strategies. So outcomes are clear learning results that student can demonstrate at the end of significant learning experiences. There are what learners can actually do with what they know and have learned. So, based on SPADI, the education system was more bent on how to make them achieve good scores. So, there are graduates who can pass the exam but lack of skills. So, there are those who can do the job well yet are not classic textbook learners. In a traditional classroom settings, those who could not cope with the lessons in a given time frame are not given the chance to complete them. We must rebuild our education system in such a way that they would be allowed to learn what they need to learn in their own given time and method. So, the purpose of OBE is the switch towards outcomes-based learning was due to the belief that learners learn best when they do the task personally. So, OBE aims to carry desired changes within the learners by increasing and developing their knowledge and skills and completely enhancing their beliefs, values, and judgment. So, instead of having the teachers produce all of the inputs, students are expected to find the answers by doing the task themselves. So using these methods, students are molded to become lifelong learners and independent thinkers. So that is the purpose of changing the education system to outcome-based education. Thank you.
Now that we've talked about outcomes-based education, let's talk about K-12 in the Philippines. What is the K-12 program? The K-12 program covers kindergarten and 12 years of basic education, which composes of 6 years of primary education, 4 years of junior high school, and 2 years of senior high school, to provide sufficient time for the learners' mastery of concepts and skills, and to develop them into lifelong learners. The preparation for the implementation of K-12 started with the Universal Kindergarten implemented in school year 2011 to 2012, wherein 5-year-old children are required to be in kindergarten before they can be accepted to grade 1. In school year 2012 to 2013, the enhanced curriculum for K-12 was finally implemented, and in 2013, K-12 was enacted into a law known as RA 10533, or the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. So why was K-12 implemented? Poor quality of basic education is reflected in the low achievement scores of Filipino students in the National Achievement Test and international tests like TIMSS, or the Trends in Math and Science subjects, partly due to the congested 10-year basic education curriculum. It was also the only country in Asia that was still in a 10-year basic education curriculum, and thus, many students were not recognized in other countries. K-12 aims to solve this by giving the students more time to study the necessary subjects instead of congesting all of it in the 10-year basic curriculum. K-12 also makes students more prepared in joining the workforce by offering different additional tracks that hone their academic knowledge and skills. So what does K-12 have in connection with OBE? K-12 revised the subjects to be student-centered, which means the teachers will be the facilitators, and let their students take a more hands-on approach. Furthermore, before the students finish their 12th year, they are given 150 hours of on-the-job training to give them a first-hand experience in working.